Hey friends, welcome. Tonight we are going to be talking about networking strategies that work. I'm so excited. My buddy Divyanshu is a guru at this kind of stuff. For you who are looking for jobs, where to find them, how to find them, these are going to be some incredible tips. We are live and I'm excited that this Sunday night, welcome to everyone who's coming to hang out with us. But we're going to be going deep in networking strategies. If you've ever heard me say anything before, you'll know that networking is the best way to get a job here in America compared to anything else, especially if you're an international student. And so we've got three kind of big ideas, three big points about networking that we're going to break down for you guys tonight. And Divyanshu, welcome, my friend. What are you sipping on?
I am having tea right now.
Some
Just
tea. I've
having
got some chai as well.
my
So
it's
welcome,
chai
everybody.
toasting.
Exactly. Welcome. So Divyanshu, for our friends, go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. So I am from New Delhi, India, and I came to the United States in fall 2018 for my master's in science and human resource management. And I recently graduated. Well, not recently because it's about to be over a year now, but I graduated in the spring of 2020 with my MS in HRM and with a minor in finance. And after that, I started working as a contractor in the insurance industry. And currently, right now, I am working as the human resource business partner for a software company. Alongside, I have my own private consultancy, which is not a company right now, but I'm consulting as well on a part-time basis. So I really enjoy that. Also, thank you so much for having me over here, and I'm really excited for this session. I think this is and I was counting today very briefly. I think this is our fifth session together or sixth session together. And I know that we have shot like on campus job strategies and TOEFL and everything. And, like this video that we're shooting today, it brings a lot of good memories back to the time when I was in graduate school. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
having me. I'm really hopeful that this session can bring in value to
Oh,
all.
this session is going to be amazing. I've read your notes, you guys. Get excited. But fun fact, Divyanshu, we've made several excellent Chai and coaching videos. Divyanshu is so detailed, so thorough, one of the best of the videos that we make. But he was actually the very first student from UT Arlington to reach out to me on LinkedIn and invite me across town to come and make some videos over there. So it's been really fun enjoying and knowing him the last couple of years and getting to meet some other students at UT Arlington. So Divyanshu, thank you so much, my friend. Again, we're going to do some Q&A at the end. We got three big points about networking. But for you guys who are watching, go ahead and just say hi in the comments. Introduce yourself, say where you're from. I'm here in Dallas, and you're in Arlington, right, Divyanshu?
Yes.
So he's just across town, the DFW Metro. But where are you guys tuning in from? Let us know in the comments. We want to say hi to you guys and throw some questions in there. We're excited to interact and have some fun with you guys. So again, tonight we're going to be talking about networking strategies. So we're going to get this party started. And the very first big point, the big idea that Divyanshu is going to talk about is networking as an exchange. And this is, I think, foundational for understanding what networking really is and should be.
Correct. Thank you so much, Robert. Before I start talking about networking as an exchange, I want to talk about some common misconceptions that people have about networking. And this is like one of the biggest misconceptions. A lot of international students, when they come to the United States, they start feeling like networking is such an alien concept or something that they have not done back in their home country. And, like I'm coming to the US now and I have to do like this whole new form of social exchange that I'm not familiar with, which is not true. There's a lot of similarities between Asian culture and Western culture, and this is what my master's thesis was also on. By the way, my thesis was that we as a community, as an Eastern and a Western community, are becoming more and more similar. So networking is very common in Asia. We have something called as guangxi. And I'm not really sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly. I practice this a lot, but I'm sorry if I'm butchering it. But that's a formal way of having a social currency and expanding your social network. Of course, that is a little bit different from, like going to a networking event in Dallas or attending a conference or sending someone a connection request on LinkedIn or following someone on LinkedIn. But the thing is that all these cultures, they emphasize on building a long-term relationship over a short-term relationship. And that is what networking is all about. You cannot have a short-term relationship and expect that something is going to turn out and have expectations. And sometimes those expectations do not turn out into reality, and that just leads to lack of motivation and disappointment. So when we talk about networking as an exchange, it's very important for us to firstly understand that we are stressing on building a long-term relationship, whether it is here in the United States or if you're here in a country like India, Japan, China, which is a very collectivist culture. In the United States, on the other hand, we have an individualistic culture, but still there's a lot of emphasis on building a long-term relationship. So that is exactly what networking as an exchange is about. When you're approaching someone, it's very important that you approach someone with positive energy and do not have unrealistic expectations in your mind. That, okay, you know what, I'm approaching Robert today, and he works at XYZ company, and that's my dream company. And you know what, after this interaction, I'm just going to reach out to him like 3 seconds after the interaction. I'm going to reach out to him and ask for a job opportunity. Well, that's just having unrealistic expectations. And then we're going to talk about what kind of expectations you're supposed to have while networking. But when we're talking about networking as an exchange, it is very important that you have to understand that you should be the one who initiates that conversation, right? Because you need that person for an opportunity, right? And it is it's absolutely okay to be calculative during that time, because you're building a relationship. And even when you're trying to network with someone else, they know that perhaps this relationship, they are reaching out to me. And you don't have to make it very obvious, because and that's what the very difference is between a long-term and a short-term relationship. You just made a new connection. You met someone in a networking event in Dallas, and you're just reaching out to them for a job. It's not going to work out like that. So when we talk about exchange, it's very important that you, who really wants to use that value in the relationship, you are the first one who initiates that conversation. And a lot of people, they ask me that, how do we do that? Is it possible? I feel really shy, and it's not going to work out. But I just say that, irrespective about how you're feeling, it's very important that you are the first one who initiates that conversation. And sometimes it can happen the other way around as well, because when you go for networking events, it's all about having curiosity about what the other person is doing. So it is possible that sometimes another person might reach out to you and ask you about your background. But it's very important that if that does not happen, you are making that exchange. It's your responsibility to ask them for, perhaps like send them a LinkedIn connection request or follow them on LinkedIn. It is your responsibility to do like a full background research on them and reach out to them on LinkedIn or any other social media platform that you've connected them with.
Divyanshu, I got to say something real quick, man. You wouldn't believe how many people have messaged me on LinkedIn and say, "Where are you from?" or "What do you do?" And then I simply reply, "What does my profile say?" It only takes 2 seconds to go and look to learn so much about a person. And it's so silly to message them and ask those basic questions.
Yeah, that's just like reaching out to Amazon and just asking them like, hey, what do you guys do? I mean, it's so obvious. And you, as a person who is reaching out to another person, and if you really want that exchange to be meaningful, it's very essential that you do some background research on them. For example, you cannot just ask them, "Oh, did you go to UT Arlington as well?" Well, all of my information is there in the education profile that I have. So, it's very essential to do that research. And even after following all of that steps, Robert, a lot of people like become very disappointed and that's why it's very essential when we talk about networking as an exchange, that you have to be prepared to take that sense of rejection even after you have followed all that steps. You might have had a great conversation in that networking conference in Dallas, and you might have felt like, oh my god, I've got a job. I would get a job and it's going to turn out to be something. But it needs to be a long-term relationship. So and we can talk about when is the right time to actually ask them for something, but you have to nurture and really value the relationship, and like really make it grow before you can actually ask for an opportunity.
Yeah, think about just real life, outside of this job search bubble. If you want someone to do something really big, important for you, you're going to do something with someone that you trust and they trust you. And trust always comes from a deep relationship. relationships over a long period of time. You're not going to come up to a random stranger and ask them to take you to the doctor's office. You're going to get a friend or a family member you really trust. And same with the job search. It's incredible that people are posting on LinkedIn, begging, expecting strangers to find them a job that don't know them at all. Where
And
really,
I had a point about that you
yeah,
can people, I see that all the time on LinkedIn, and I have so many
yeah,
people added on LinkedIn that they would post their resume, and it just, and I have also commented at times, like commenting for better reach and stuff. It might reach the recruiters, but that just like it's not very good for your brand name. And
mm-mm,
establishing yourself as an international person in the United States, it's all about, and I saw that in one of the videos that you shot with a professor who was from UT Dallas. It was a really, really great video, great tips and suggestions that I saw over there. But what he was talking about was establishing your brand name, and when you are going out there and asking for jobs, and that's what a lot of international students do,
mm-hmm,
Robert, that once they would think about networking as this magical term that they're going to start
yeah,
using after they graduate. So you know what, I'm going to graduate in spring 2020, and after I graduate, I'm going to use this magical wand called networking, and I'm going to reach out to recruiters, and I'm going to post this message on LinkedIn that asks like 1,000 people whom I've added, and I do not even know who they are. I'm going to ask for a job, and it's going to work. Well, it's not going
mm-hmm.
to work like that, right?
No, it's the worst way to get a job for sure.
Exactly. And
So,
why would a person, so when we talk about, again, going networking as an exchange, when we talk about, um, reaching out to a person for and establishing a long-term relationship, people are very skeptical these days to refer
mm-hmm,
someone, and if it's a no, if you do not really know that person, you do not know what value you can expect from that relationship. And there's so much vulnerability in the relationship as well, because you might recommend me, but you haven't seen my work. You have just seen my post on LinkedIn that was begging for a job, and like
yeah,
maybe like I know we have some mutual connections, but you haven't seen my work. So in my recommendation, I would say that that's not a very good way of asking for a job. I mean, if you're completely out of options and you're about to get deported in a week if you don't find a job, and which is very unfortunate. And I'm really sorry if you're experiencing a situation like that. You can use that as an option, but I'm not
it's
really
still
sure.
just not a good option.
It's still not a very good option.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in America, at least how it works is, friends hire friends and friends refer friends, not strangers and not beggars. So as an exchange, you have to build this relationship, which is back and forth, which is what you guys know how to do in Eastern cultures. And over time, you give and receive, you build that trust, you build that relationship. And that's where opportunities come from. That's where referrals come from. That's where jobs come from. But you have to do it from day one, not the day you're about to leave America because your visa's up.
Absolutely. And that totally makes sense. Do you know that 85% of the jobs in America, and that's one research that I found out,
Hmm.
are filled to a third party recommendation? 85% of the jobs. So
Yep.
networking is definitely a big thing, but it's not an alien concept. Like networking is very common in India as well, and in other
Hmm.
Asian countries are very, very common.
Yeah.
It happens everywhere. And like I said, that most of the cultures and communities, they are becoming more and more similar to each other. So the emphasis on building a long-term relationship is everywhere. So
Yeah.
that is one thing that I wanted to stress on.
Awesome. Well, we've nailed this point. Before we move to the next point, I just want to make sure all you guys, awesome people who are tuning in with us, know about the Chine Coaching newsletter. I'm going to throw that in the comments and it's in the video description. We're really ramping that up, and every week or every other week, we're going to have great tips, resources. You'll get updates about live events like this, where we shared, hey, this is where you can register to know about Divyanshu and his awesome networking session. So be sure to be subscribed to that newsletter. I've also put our social media handles in there. I'd love to connect with you guys online. But number two, big ideas of networking is networking expectations. Now let's do some education and help people really understand this with networking.
Correct. So, a lot of management majors, when they talk about expectations and goal settings, there's this term that they use, which is SMART goals. And I'm sure that non-management majors are also familiar with what SMART goals are, which is specific, measurable, attainable, timely, realistic, right? These are the steps that you need to follow. But that does not specifically apply to networking, because Networking is based on if I'm going to an event in Dallas or in Austin, I do not know what the future is going to be. While it's very important that you go to a networking event with a goal in your mind that I am going to make connections. Well, if that's a goal, that's a good goal. It does not need to be specific. That I'm going to make 5 connections from Amazon, 2 connections from Microsoft, 3 connections from Deloitte, and I'm going to go home with, like the total number of connections, and I'm really going to enjoy that. And tomorrow I'm going to reach out to them and I'll have one reference at Deloitte, one reference at Amazon, and one reference at Microsoft. And so that's not a very realistic expectation. So when it comes to specific, you cannot have a specific expectation, but at the same time, approach a networking event with a goal in mind. Now, what it does is that once you go to a networking event and you have this impression or have this kind of mentality that you're just going to interact with people who are working in one particular company. For example, if I go to a networking event and I think that I'm only going to interact with people who are working at Microsoft, now that leads to two things. And I always talk about this when I'm hosting networking sessions. The very first thing is that it's going to create a sense of disappointment and lack of motivation because if you do not find a person from Microsoft, which is your dream company to work at, you might feel like networking events are not that great, and I don't want to go to a networking event again, right? Because you had an expectation and it did not turn into a reality. So this can lead to disappointment and lack of motivation. Second thing is you might miss out on other opportunities. You might have someone from Amazon or from Deloitte, from Ernst& Young, who can, or from any other company. You don't have to start like really, really big after you graduate, like any other software company or company that you might be interested to work at. You might lose out on those opportunities. So when it comes to expectations, keep your expectations low, but at the same time, have this goal in your mind that I'm going to make connections today. I might not make connections, but I'm going there to make connections, and I'm going to try my best, even if it's in a virtual setting. And then we talk about some common distractors that we had that's there in networking events, even if it's in a virtual setting. The first, and I have like 4 big common distractors. The first big common distractors, and since networking event is all about having exchange and having a lot of people, is saying hi to someone that you already know while you're having this interaction. For example, I'm having this interaction with you, and
Hmm.
my concentration is like 100% in this live session to see the comments, if there's any interesting question that I can answer. But if someone says hi to me and I say, oh, hi, hello there, roommate, how are you doing today? And it's a networking event, so you might find people that you already know, right? Even in a virtual setting. That's a common distractor. So when you're setting expectations, the other person that you're having that exchange with, that person would also have some expectations from you, which is to have a really great social interaction and keep that conversation very formal.
Hmm.
And another disadvantage, and that I've seen, I'm going to go back to distractors in a second, is that a lot of people, they approach people like they're their friends or they have known them forever, and it's very important that you have that formal interaction. I feel like that's a little bit a cultural difference because it's a little informal in India, and America is all about having that professionalism and dressing all professional and like having formal interactions with each other, and not like the comfort level is also very different based on personal experience. This is not a research that I've seen, just based on personal experience.
Hmm.
But it's very important that you fulfill that expectations of having a formal interaction. Another common distractor is looking at your cell phone while someone is talking to you. So you do not have to do that in a networking event.
Doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Robert, what was that? Okay, I'm listening. That doesn't create a very good impression. And
No.
when we talk about networking, Robert, I feel like from personal experience, and since I work in the field of human resource management, um, and I get paid to judge people. So the thing is that it's very much relied on first impressions, the first
Hmm.
impression that you're making. So if I'm talking to you and you might be a great source of like a great professional connection for me, and if I am very distracted while talking to you and looking at your cell phone, that's very rude. So don't do that. Even in a virtual setting, when you have your camera on and you're typing on the screen. When I'm having my calls like at work, and someone is like, and I always tell them when I'm doing something time sensitive, I always tell them that, hey, I'm listening to you, but I'm multitasking at the same time, so that they do not feel ignored.
Yeah.
That's very important.
And today, like, people make first impression judgments in a few seconds, like everything, whether it's, a LinkedIn profile, something on social media, looking at your resume, meeting you for the first time at a professional networking event, judgments are made just within the first few seconds, 3 to 5 seconds. And they're going to make a decision whether yes or no. And so that is so important, and you can't take that lightly.
Absolutely. And, a lot of people would say that we have to be less and less judgmental about people. But the thing is, that's the sad reality that, that's a judgment that they're going to use to take a business decision. It's all about business. It's all about money, right? If the first impression is not good, you might try to kind of change that impression with your work and with your professionalism later. But since you're trying to develop a relationship, if the starting of the relationship is not what the other person is expecting, and since it's an exchange that we talked about in the first point, that you have to give more, and they don't need you but you need them, so that's why it's very important that you have expectations all set up. The third major distractor, and that's what I've noticed in networking event. I went to a networking event in Dallas, and sharing my personal example because I have also worked as a recruiter in the past. So I remember there was a guy who was from UT Dallas, and he was like trying to talk to me about, like, I was sharing my background. He was interested in the company, but when I told him that it's something that's completely very very different, like the jobs that are currently open, he was in a way trying to get out of the conversation because he thought that it's not going to be a useful exchange, right? Because I was approaching you for possibly a job opportunity in your company, but you don't have those kind of vacancies, or you work in a very different company, so it's not going to be a very useful exchange for me. And let me try to get out of that conversation. You do not know how a person can help you in, like, in the future, which is again, like I said, contingent. It's based on so many contingencies. I might not have a vacancy right now, but in the future we might have like 15, 16 vacancies, in whichever company that I'm working at. So, or like same goes for any recruiter or anyone who works in talent acquisition, and forget human resources, like anyone who's working as a project manager in a big company or a small company, whatever. You do not really know how people can be helpful and how the connection can be really, really valuable. So the third biggest distractor is trying to get out of the conversation when you do not know that, when you think that that person might not be that way helpful to you in the future.
And then is there a fourth one? One more last one, right?
There's one last one, and I'm going to make it very quick. The last one is just it's all about like summarizing all the points, like thinking that that person works in a particular company, and I'm only going to talk with people who are working at Microsoft. So if I'm interacting with someone who works in a small company, and I saw a person wearing Microsoft t-shirt, and I'll be like, oh, okay, this is not a valuable exchange right now, and this conversation does not have my 100% attention. I'm going to go to that guy or that girl who's wearing that Microsoft t-shirt. That's also a common distractor. Be present in the moment. Every networking, consultants or videos, they would begin with this first point, which is be present in the moment. And that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And if you guys who are watching are loving this, you're getting value, give a big like on this video to say thanks to Divyanshu. Throw a like in there and tell us in the chat, what's been helpful so far, or what are networking expectations you guys have had, and that you've learned are different. What do you guys think about networking? Let us know in the chat for you guys who are watching. We're going to come to our third and final point about kind of networking that Divyanshu is going to share before we jump into some fun Q&A to answer you guys' questions. So be ready with those. But this last point is expressing curiosity. And I feel like a lot of people view networking as like a means to an end, as a transaction. But expressing curiosity, I think, is a way better way to maybe kind of define or kind of have as a filter for what networking is. So I'm really excited to have you share about this, Divyanshu.
Absolutely. So expressing curiosity, and that is something that is very, very useful. Not necessarily, well, when you're applying to graduate school or for to business schools, it's very important that you reach out to professors before you get admitted, especially when you're looking for opportunities like graduate teaching assistantship or graduate research assistantship. So how you express curiosity is, for example, I read a paper that a professor, a really, really renowned professor from UT Arlington had written. And I read that paper and I had a couple of questions about it. So that's a good way of reaching out to that professor and say that, hey, I read your paper and that paper was so informative. But you know what? I looked at your data and have a couple of questions about it. And can we schedule some time to talk about it? And I know that you're really busy, and you can reply to this email at your own availability and convenience. So you have expressed curiosity. And if you had reached out to that professor who has a ton of work to do, by the way, he wouldn't have replied to you. But then since that professor works in the field of academia, which is all about, exploring, experimentation, research, scientific research, and you have asked some really good questions, he or she might reply to you. So that's a way in which you can express curiosity and network. And same goes for not necessarily in academia or searching for a graduate teaching assistantship or research assistantship, in networking events as well, be it virtual or in person. I went to this networking event in Austin, and everyone was wearing their company T-shirt. In that networking event. So, and some people who were not working, like I was wearing my UT Arlington T-shirt because I was a student during that time. So that's a great way to build connections by just saying that, oh, you know what, I see someone wearing a UT Arlington or a SMU T-shirt. I'm a student at SMU right now. So SMU T-shirt, and I would say that, oh, you know what, did you also study business analytics at SMU, or what course are you taking? And just approaching people like that. For example, on LinkedIn, you can filter. If you have LinkedIn Premium, you can filter based on school and courses. So what you can do is, for example, if I search for someone who has studied business analytics, correct, I would say that, hey, you know what, I'm studying business analytics this semester and I do not have a lot of coding background. So I just wanted some advice on what courses I should take in my first semester. And I'm taking like Python and data mining and machine learning. Is that a good combination? Like asking questions like that. Is that a good combination? And since I do not have a coding background, I do not want to overwhelm myself with a lot of technical stuff. And people would reply, I have tested that. I have really tested that. When I graduated, I used to reach out to people right when I graduated. The pandemic hit, and like I had so many references, and there was a job freeze, like hire freeze, and there was this entire phase that I had to go through for like a couple of weeks, wherein wherever I used to apply, they would be like, or whenever I used to reach out to my any personal connection who worked at a particular company, they used to tell me, oh, we are on a hiring freeze right now. And I feel like a lot of people are still facing this situation. But at the same time, it's very important that you still network, because the market is and the market is slowly opening, right? It's slowly opening. And that's a great way to network, by expressing curiosity. You are my senior in the industry, like approaching someone like that. Hey, I know that someone who is the director of HR. I'm going to reach out to them and say that, as my senior in my industry, what specific recommendations do you have for me? And then going back to our first point, it's an exchange wherein you have to give more and receive less, and not be disappointed if the relationship does not turn out to be the way that you had expected it to be. So I can reach out to them and ask for specific recommendations, but they do not have any obligation to reply to me. So if you just, for example, if I reach out to you on LinkedIn, Robert, and say that, hey, great work, what are you going to say? Just thank you, right? And then it's my responsibility to make sure that that conversation keeps on going. So how do you keep that going? By asking questions and another questions and doing a complete research on what that person is doing. Oh, okay. So you went to SMU. Right. So SMU, I'm planning to take that course. Or did you take that course for from that particular professor? I really like that course. What are your specific thoughts on that? And then a lot of people would network and they would just answer. And you're not supposed to ask like those questions only. it's very essential that you share your ambitions as well, ambitions and aspirations. For example, you see a guy whose LinkedIn profile, education profile says that they went to Wharton, or like some really top business school, UT Austin, and you reach out to them and say that, oh, that's my dream school, and can you list down some strategies that would help me to get my admit from that school? And they would reply to you. I have got replies like that, and your success rate might not be like 100%. Neither was mine. Like it was close to like 60, 70%. But then if you reach out to a lot of people and spend enough time networking while you're in school, do not consider networking as a magic wand. Like I said, that once you're going to graduate, you're going to make like 100 more connections, and those you're going to magically get a job. So while you're in school, and it starts from the day when you enter the US, like right from. And I would say that I started networking very, very early. And still, there was a time when I graduated, I did not have a job, and I did not take it very personally. I still networked and eventually found a job. Like I found multiple jobs, and I found a job in the company that I really, really wanted to work at, like one of the big fours. I found a job over there. Currently I work as a human resource business partner, like I said, and as a contractor. So I really wanted to have do consulting side by side, and I really enjoy conversations like this. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'll add a couple things to what you said. So this is just my opinion. Other people disagree, but I don't think LinkedIn is real networking. Chatting with someone on LinkedIn is not sufficient for getting a job, and I do not define that as real networking. LinkedIn can be used to start a conversation or continue a conversation, but real networking happens off of LinkedIn. You actually have to, before it was be in person, now it can be virtual, but you have to have interaction off of LinkedIn, off of some DMs, in order to have a real connection, in order to really express that curiosity. There's so many people on LinkedIn begging, messaging, spamming, that you're not going to stand out. So it's a great way to start a conversation, or maybe once you build a relationship, you can continue it there. But don't think just messaging people on LinkedIn is going to do it, because that is not real networking. And I love this curiosity point. I want to close this with this. One of the biggest questions people say is, Rob, what do I say? How do you talk to Americans? And they always freak out because they think they have to have like the perfect elevator pitch or speech for networking. But here's my secret on networking. The biggest secret of networking is the best networkers are the best question askers. They never talk about themselves. Networking is all about getting the other person to talk, and you do that by asking questions, being genuinely curious, because everyone has something to teach you, and all you got to do is ask and learn, and then they feel honored. They get to add value to you, and then that helps you stand out, build that relationship, the exchange, and that's where good things come from, as you tie it all together of what Divyanshu said today.
Absolutely, Robert. That's a great summary, and I absolutely agree that just messaging someone on LinkedIn would not be a really great way to network. But at the same time, I would say that it's very essential that we use that. And going back to the point that you made, as a follow up to the networking connection that you established, maybe in a conference or in a virtual event, and then or maybe you had an interview with someone, and then you added them on LinkedIn and said that it was very nice talking to you today and stuff. So really great summary, I would say.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Well, yeah, we're gonna pause our conversation here because we want to give you guys some time now to do some Q&A about networking with us. And so real quick, we want to make sure you guys are connected with us. So be sure that you're subscribed to the Chine Coaching newsletter. I'm going to throw Divyanshu's links in there. You can follow him on LinkedIn and Instagram. Following other people on LinkedIn is a great way to learn how to do well there. And so highly recommend connect him. Always send an invitation personal request on LinkedIn. Don't just connect with someone. If you're going to connect with someone, send them an invitation note. I'll be very bummed if someone watched this, connects with us on LinkedIn, and didn't send the invitation note. So make sure you do that. Say, hey, Divyanshu, loved your session on networking, excited to connect with you on LinkedIn, and we'll definitely connect with you. So be sure.
It really motivates me if I see comments like that. So if you want to see sessions like that, please comment.
Yeah. All right. So Q&A time. Go ahead and start throwing your questions in the chat. We want to ask or answer those for you guys. And so we're really excited to do some Q&A, answer your questions about networking. I'm going to go back a little bit here through the chat. Yeah, anything about networking, throw it at us. We're going to do our best to help that out. So earlier you mentioned about approaching professors, especially for doing like TA, RA on-campus jobs and stuff. What are some tips you have on that for approaching professors, Divyanshu?
Great question. So the very first, and I would say the most important tip would be to review their research. And you might ask me like where all of that information is available. That all of the research that we do, that is open research. So if you talk about professors at UT Arlington and the kind of research that they have done and the papers that they have published, it's all open. If you go to the library source, you can see that this professor published these many papers, and then you can read their papers and ask them, like, reach out to them with questions. That is how I got my graduate teaching assistantship, and it's very, very useful for graduate research assistantship as well, because you want to research eventually. Teaching assistantship isn't necessarily tied to researching. It can be seen more as an administrative job and being an assistant instructor in few courses, not teaching like full time or doing that as a job. Um, but the thing is that for graduate research assistantship, it's really, really helpful, and that's the first step, that that you do your own research and look at the papers that the professor has published and ask them questions on that. Then just ask them if they have graduate research or teaching opportunities available, because there would be departments that'll be like absolutely like they wouldn't have any opportunities at all, but they would say that, hey, we do not have opportunities at all, but I do see, like, a lot of people are going to graduate in spring, and there are going to be like 5 or 6 more vacancies in summer. So you are really, like, in a way, reserving your seat for summer, and you're saying that, oh, you know what, I'm really interested. And it's very essential that you follow up. Like, if you had that conversation in November and the professor said that there's going to be a vacancy in summer, it's very important that you reach out to them again in February. Do not reach out to them like a lot of time. And it's very essential that that what's the difference between following up and stressing someone with a bunch of follow-ups that are totally not required.
Yeah, a couple of
Um,
extra things too. I think, I know students who have gotten these kind of positions even before coming to America. Again, they've done their research, they've looked up professors, they've looked up subjects, they've looked up work and projects and research, and they've send an email to the professors that are pertaining to the things they're really excited about doing. They have their own relevant experience, and just nicely asked, saying, hey, I'm curious, are there any opportunities? I'm an incoming student. I love this. I've read this. I see this. This really lines up in my passion or career goals. Sometimes there's an opportunity. And if not, you might have planted the seed. And then most teachers or professors are at least going to want to know you. Maybe you have a semester. So make sure you maybe try and get them first semester so you can have a class with them. And they can see, okay, this guy is what he says he is. And I would love for them to work with me this next semester. So again, it's all about the relationship and the initiative taking, the connection. And then also learn from the other students who've gone before you. Talk to the seniors who are in that role, and then they can refer you. On-campus jobs, again, mostly all come through relationships and referrals, not through applying online. So get connected with those people who are already doing it, and they can connect you and refer you and help guide you.
Correct. And Robert, before we close this question and move on to the next, I see that there are 2 questions. How can I obtain a GTA, and is it more difficult as an international student? Well, to answer the second question, it's not difficult at all as an international student. I'm not really sure if I should say this or not, but it's comparatively easier, because a lot of professors, they know that if international students, they get graduate teaching assistantship, they get in-state tuition, which is like 50% off on your tuition, and they know that that's a benefit that international students are really, really looking forward to. So talking about, like, the department that I work, that we used to receive like 300, 400 applications, all from international students. And when you talk about compensation, working as a GTA does not give you a whole lot of compensation. So a US citizen or like a Texas resident would not necessarily be interested in that, because they can make a lot more working full time in a company. So being an international student, it's not difficult. It's comparatively easier. I hope that answers your question. It's a really, really great question, and I hope that we have honored the quality of the question that you asked.
Yeah, I think it's good. Next one, Kaushika asks, what are some avenues for networking apart from networking events? There's many, but I'll share some, but love to see what your ideas are first, Divyanshu.
I am trying to understand the question. So it says, what are some avenues for networking apart from networking events? So absolutely. So you do not, I understood it now. So you do not necessarily need to go to a networking event in specific to network. Like I said, networking is something that we do every day. And it's not necessarily meeting people who can, refer you or, like you can use them as a valuable connection or whatever. It's also about like making new friends, and then you make friends in graduate school and they graduate and some of them work at the top companies that you want to work at. So it's something that's very constant, and it's constant and very continuous. So like I said, you do not necessarily need to be at events, but going to events definitely, because that is specific for networking only, and that is the only purpose of the event. So that's also a very useful resource. But interacting with your classmates while you're taking courses together, great networking opportunity. Interacting.
Especially, we're doing projects with students that are not from your country. We're doing projects with Americans versus only students from your own culture and country, which is a big issue amongst international students.
Correct. So yeah. I mean, group projects can really be that icebreaker that you are looking for. And like a lot of people say that, oh, I do have classmates who are Americans or people from different countries, but I do not really know. I feel really shy to have that interaction with them. But now that you have a group project and you have to work together to get that A grade and uplift your GPA together, so that's a great venue for networking. And other than that, I would say interacting with your professors and making sure that that connection is something that stays. I have had the professors that I had taken at UT Arlington. I know that even I have graduated and I go to UT Arlington and see them after 5 years, they would remember me because I used to ask like so many questions in class. I used to bother my professor a lot with questions, but I used to ask questions a lot. I used to do background research on their professional experience, and used to reach out to them and say that, oh yeah, worked at this company, and how was your experience? One of my professor was the vice president of BNSF, and like she had like absolutely like 15 to 20 years of great professional experience and compensation, and I really enjoyed all the interactions that I had. And we tried to get a job. Like she did try to get a job for me, but then we realized that they do not sponsor. I mean, the one specific company we were trying, and they were not sponsoring. But that's again a great networking strategy. So
Mhm.
those are the kind of avenues that I have apart from specifically going to.
Yeah, I mean, so many things are on campus that students don't even take advantage of. I know the career services provide a lot for students. They bring in outside speakers from companies, a lot of the clubs and organizations, getting involved in those, especially if they have a specific field or industry, because they bring in speakers who are local professionals. A lot of that's happening virtually now. The best thing I'm going to put in the chat, my favorite, is meetup.com. It's an
Mhm.
amazing app and website. I would take students to meetups here in Dallas. Now, the beautiful thing is all the networking hasn't stopped with the pandemic. It's just moved virtually. So now, not only can you attend a meetup here in Dallas, you can virtually attend meetups in Seattle, New York, San Francisco, Boston, Chicago, and meet people who are interested in the field or jobs or careers that you're going. And the whole purpose is to connect, meet people, and see how you can help each other out. So meetup.com is one of the best ways that you can meet people attending online conferences. Obviously it used to be in-person conferences. Now everything's online. You can attend all these online conferences, save some money, budget, go for even pay to go to those. That's where you're going to meet professionals. And so if you want to be a software engineer, you need to go where the software engineers are. If you want to be, a data scientist, you got to go hang out where the data scientists are. If you want to be in supply chain, go to the supply chain people. And so being around students is great, but that's not going to get you a job. Go be around the professionals, and that's where you build your network. You got to go find where they're at, go find where they're hanging out at the meetups, at the conferences, at the workshops. That's where you rub shoulders, and that's where relationships begin.
Absolutely.
One person asked about that study that you mentioned about the culture study at the very beginning. Do you have the reference for that?
Yes, we can attach that to the video description. But
Okay.
that's a great question, Lakshmi, and I hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining. That's a great question. So the culture study that I was mentioning was about it's in a way related to my thesis, wherein I talked about how companies and organizations, companies and cultures, they're becoming more and more similar, and what I was referring to was, I don't want to use jargons over here, but mimetic isomorphism, which means that in times of uncertainty, when you do not know what to do, you copy the best strategies, which is basically what we're doing. International students, when they're coming to the United States, that's an environment for them, which is absolutely like they did not really know what is happening. So that's why we have consultants like Robert who really help them and make videos, and wherein we have, like, for example, this one, best networking strategies, and they are in the times of uncertainty wherein they do not really know if they would get a job, and they have taken loans for their education, and this uncertainty about a future employment. So they follow the best strategies, and these strategies are becoming more and more similar. So there's a really great study on this, and very great question, and we're gonna attach that study if that's possible, Robert.
Yeah, we'll put it in the video description later on, and so you can see it there. Thanks so much, Divyanshu. We've got a couple other really good questions I want to get to before we wrap up here. M. Jamal says, do you think companies are still recruiting locally? Would it be worth to apply outside the state? Yes and yes. I don't know. What do you think?
That's a really great question, Jamal. I hope you're doing well. So yes, companies are still recruiting locally. It's really there was a temporary hiring freeze during the pandemic, and like a lot of people lost their jobs, and there's still a hiring freeze that is going on. It really depends. So when you say companies, I do not really know which specific companies you're talking about, but the freeze has been lifted after 2021, and I do not really know which specific companies that you're talking about, and my answer would be very company specific. But in summary, I would say that yes, they are still recruiting locally. Would it be worth it to apply outside the state? I would say that, of course, like if you wanna go to California, if you want to go to Seattle, and if you're living in Texas, absolutely go for it. But as a recruiter, I would say that if I am looking at your application and I'm here in California and you're from Texas, I would think twice about it, because I would also have to pay relocation as a part of your compensation, and which means that I have to pay more. It increases expenses and decreases revenue, so affects profitability. I might think twice about going ahead with your application unless you're really good, or if you agree to move to California without a relocation. But I would say that if you're in Texas and if you're an engineer, if you have completed a technical degree, DFW is a great market for engineers. Great market for engineers. I think it would be worth it to apply to Dallas, and that relocation variable would not affect your job search so much. But having said that, if you have like really great opportunities outside, if you have someone in California who can refer you to a really great company who's in California or in any other state, you can definitely go with that. But
Divyanshu, I want to bust a quick myth. So many international students are blaming the pandemic for not getting a job. And now I do know I have international student and American friends who've lost jobs, who've had offers rescinded. So I know it definitely has an impact, especially several months ago. But December is an interesting case study because I posted about this. You guys can go see online on my social media. I posted an article where December, even though with the fall, the economy built back up over the fall after kind of the crash in the summer, December had a big job loss, a spike in unemployment. But that was mostly among low income earners, low wage earners. So people that make $40,000 a year or less. Then the middle income earners, 40 to 70,000 a year, basically stayed the same. But the high income earners of America, 70K yearly salary and above, which is all of you guys. If you're an international student doing a master's, you're going to be earning 70K or above with your technical degrees. They actually saw an increase in hiring and employment. So actually the job opportunities haven't increased when there was an overall net decrease, which means companies are hiring. There are jobs available for you guys. Stop blaming the pandemic. It's probably your approach because you don't know how to network. And so this session is so important for you guys. Jobs are available. You have to just stop blindly applying online. Go meet people. Go do the research because there's so many companies hiring right now because companies are booming that have pivoted and done well to meet the needs of the people in the pandemic.
Absolutely. And in continuation to what you said, like, increase in the wages, I feel like some people did lose their jobs. But, for example, if you have a company and you were thinking about a project and you hired an intern for that project, but then you realize that the market is closing and that project is not very feasible or not very economical in that market, and you close that project, you might not convert that internship opportunity into a full-time opportunity. So a lot of engineers felt that, especially when you're working for the government projects and stuff, which directly affects the economy, which unfortunately is not going well. And then we had these new regulations as well, like the Trump administration came in with a lot of stringent laws for international, and that happens all the time. They come up with a law, they have a lawsuit, okay, that law gets like totally eliminated, right? And that happened like couple, I guess, right, twice in the last year when we are still in the global pandemic. But yeah, definitely, you know what, I feel like a lot of international, I totally agree that a lot of international students, they do blame the pandemic, but it's in a way a stress reliever for them as well. You can blame them
Yeah.
everything out to you.
Here's a great point I want to address. So Yog asks, why is networking so significant when the real decision is taken based on your skill set and knowledge in the interviews? Most importantly, is it effective to focus more on skills and projects? I want to disagree. I'd say most international students only focus on their technical skills. I would say your technical skills, your skill set might get you the interview, but it's your soft skills, your communication skills, your relation skills that get you the job. I know so many people who were quote unquote underqualified or didn't have as sweet as a resume or as good as a GPA that got jobs because they're better communicators and better at relationships for international students and Americans. If you have a degree from a good university, you know enough, and the company is going to teach you what they want. So your technical skills are basically just to get you in the door for the interview, but it's your soft skills, your relationships, your communication skills that is what makes you stand out. And I have so many case studies, so many scenarios where that's true, where the smartest person didn't get the job because they didn't do relationships well. And about 70–80% of what Divyanshu said of the jobs in America are filled through networking, referrals, and connections. Only 20–30% of jobs are posted online, which is relying on your skill set. But the vast majority of jobs are not posted online and filled through relationships, networking, and connections, which is why it's so important. Divyanshu, what do you think?
Absolutely. I feel like you said everything that I wanted to say for this question, and I don't have anything more to say, just one point. And you said that when the real decision is based on your skill set and knowledge in the interviews, I would just want to tell you that there would be so many people in the market who would have the same skill set and the knowledge. There would
So
be
much competition.
so much competition, and it's growing every day. It's not easy to get a job, to get a full-time job in the United States as an international student on a visa, wherein they have to hire a lawyer to sponsor you and pay like $4,000, $5,000 and make a case for you and fight that case for 3 years and still deal with the uncertainty of you not getting H-1B. So I would say that it's also about when a person wants to do that, that means that the company has really invested in a long-term relationship. And how do you establish that long-term relationship? By networking. When you talk about skill set, like I said, there's going to be so many people, like so many people graduate from UT Arlington with an engineering degree. Not everyone works in like the top 4 companies, right? So basically you might have a recommendation and every single job that I've got in the United States, to be very honest, and I have a confession that I'm going to make in this live video. I've had 5 jobs in the US, 2 internships, and well, 3 on-campus jobs, 2 internships, and well, 7 jobs, 2 full-time positions. And every 7 jobs that I had, every single job that I've got is because of networking. Every single one of the jobs that I had. Uh, I started with working as a minimum wage worker at Starbucks, and I did really well over there. And I was recommended as an intern in the management team, and then offered a full time position eventually, which I did not take because I got a graduate teaching assistantship. And eventually, that's how the journey actually started. But I'm just saying that in summary, there were so many other people with the same skill set, but I felt like my communication skills and my ability to build relationships has really helped me. So while it's really great, Mr. Yoke, that you have that all of that skills, and it's going to really help you. But think about if you develop these soft skills as well on making connections and networking, that's really going to be helpful for you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just like your case study, Divyanshu, 7 out of 7, all through networking and referrals. I'd say that's for most people, especially Americans. Most Americans, you ask them how they got the job, they'll say, "Oh, for this person." They won't say, "I filled out X amount of applications online." And
Mm-hmm.
so maybe we'll try and do 1 or 2 questions left. We've been going a long time. We want to honor your guys' time. I know Divyanshu is very busy, but maybe 1 or 2 last questions. Loving these, you guys. Thanks so much for sticking out with us through the end. Be sure to like this video, share some love in the comments of what's been helpful in learning. But all right, what about connections towards mentorships? How to leverage that, and should they be someone in your field? Yeah, I think mentors are an incredible things for students. Most people don't tap into that, but how can mentors be helpful for networking? What do you think, Divyanshu?
Absolutely. So mentors are the people that you're going to add to your network, and they are added to your network, and they provide very valuable guidance and mentorship to you, right? So they do not necessarily need to be someone in your field, but having said that, I would say that if they work in your field, it really depends upon what specific thing you need guidance on. For example, if you need guidance on job search, and which is very field specific. For example, I work in the field of human resource management and quantitative finance comp. So I would look at all those people who have a background in that. And if my question is related to job search, I would look at those people and ask for mentorship and guidance to how can I have that process really smooth, right? But when it comes to just like looking at someone's journey and just learning from their struggles and what they face during that journey and taking advantage of these were the mistakes that I made during my journey, and I do not want you to make those mistakes. So taking advantage of all of that, that does not necessarily need to be field specific. And you can reach out to someone, and it's not easy to just reach out to someone on LinkedIn and say that, hey, I want mentorship, and they're going to provide that to you. Like I said, it's a very, and mentorship, that's really investing in the relationship, because you're not just going to meet the person once. You're going to meet the person, you're going to constantly inform them about your life progress and what is happening, and you had this opportunity and those were the pros and cons, and they're going to really help you to make that strategic calculation and rational decision making. So it does not necessarily need to be someone in your field, but it really depends upon what you're looking at. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, yeah. And mentors is not someone that's just going to be a random stranger. It's going to come from a relationship or an introduction from another relationship. At the universities, professors and people in the career departments, things, they want to help you guys find mentors. So you just ask at the university. I'm sure there's people that can help you find a mentor, either within the university or a local professional. I know at UT Dallas, they have mentorship programs where students can get connected with local professionals, where they meet with them a couple times a month, get coffee, get a meal. Now it's like virtual coffee. But what an incredible asset to have someone locally who's working here that you get to meet with a couple times a week. They invest in you, and it's a huge plus. So yeah, take advantage of mentors. Totally. We're going to wrap up with this very last question. I love the questions you guys have been asking. Sorry, we're not going to get to all of them, but Lakshmi asks, can you make some suggestions for icebreaking conversations with complete strangers while networking? This is the golden question, right?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and Lakshmi, and everyone has asked like really good questions, but Lakshmi, she's maintaining a record of asking like really complex questions that really gets me thinking. But I'll really try to honor the quality of the question that he asked. Some ice-breaking conversation, and to answer this, I'm gonna give my example when I went to this networking conference in UT Austin, and I was so nervous during that time because that was the second networking event that I went to. And I was like, how am I going to have conversations with like all those professionals? I did not have a lot of work experience during that time. So I was like, but the good thing is that I was wearing my UTR LinkedIn t-shirt, and I saw a couple of students who were wearing their UTA t-shirts, and then everyone was wearing their company t-shirts during that time. So I was like, a really great icebreaker conversation during that time with complete strangers would be, oh, you know what? Did you go to UTR LinkedIn as well? I went to UTR LinkedIn as well. Did you study business analytics or human resource management? And that's a really great question to ask someone, when you're approaching them for the first time. Of course, like introduce yourself and ask them if they're having a good day or if they're enjoying the conference. But that's a really great question. And it goes back to the points that Robert and I made about expressing curiosity. And that's what networking events are all about. People are curious about the other person. That's why we were wearing a company t-shirt during that time. That okay, that is just a way. Okay, I see someone from Deloitte, right? And I would say that, oh, that's one of the big four companies, and I really want to work for that company after I graduate. What do you do at Deloitte? And this and then maybe ask them for add them on LinkedIn during that time, and follow up with them later. So I define that in a series of steps, and I feel like um, that would be the best way to summarize it. When you meet someone, like I said, it's your responsibility to initiate that conversation. So some good way of reaching out to people would be, and again, I might repeat myself now, by asking them questions, then adding them on LinkedIn, and that should be the only social media like the request that you should be making, because it's a formal exchange. To not ask them for Facebook or Instagram or any other personal stuff. Even for a contact number, I would not recommend. You can ask them for a business card if you want. Um, and then it's your responsibility to do a background research on them. You might have had a really great conversation during that time, but the ice breaking conversation would be after the conversation that you had them at the networking event would be, oh, you know what, oh, you found something more in their profile, and you reach them with more questions. And since they had that exchange with you, they would see like, okay, I saw that person right in that conference, and it's not a complete stranger anymore. That's why it's very important to attend conferences. Like Robert said, you just cannot approach randomly someone on LinkedIn and feel like there's going to be a very valuable exchange on that. But
Yeah, Divyanshu, I want to say too, just I think with this question goes back to your third point, curiosity. Like, what are you genuinely interested in learning about this person? And my suggestion for any introductory ice-breaking conversation is don't ask about the job or a job. Actually, my number one rule is never ask for a job. Like, you should never ask for a job or referral in real networking, because it's all about the relationship. And once someone knows you, they know you're a student, they know you're looking for a job, so you don't need to ask. It's like asking someone for a job is like saying the sky is blue. You're stating the obvious, and it's just kind of annoying. Instead, what do you want to know? Where are they from? What is their family like? Where did they study? What is their job like? What do they enjoy about their job? What's tough about their job? What are their favorite projects? What do they do for fun outside of work? What are their hobbies? As an international student, you get such an easy card, an easy grace, because you're not from here. Just like when I worked in India for 8 years, I could ask anything about India, whether I knew it or not. And people were excited to tell me because I was the foreigner, I was the outsider. And same here is, hey, I'm an international student, I'm new here. What's the local football team or sports team, or what are the holidays you celebrate, or what are fun things to do around here? Those are the things that people connect with. Those are the things people like talking about. And so ask those simple, basic questions that help you get to know about someone, and then find the connection point. Ask enough questions, 5, 10 questions, and then maybe you connect on music or sports or movies or something, food, a hobby, and then talk about that. Again, it's relationships, it's exchange, it's back and forth, it's building trust, and then it's standing out. And then that's where the good stuff happens.
Correct. So the three golden points that you have to remember that we talked about in this video as well, that you have to remember that it's a long-term relationship that you're trying to establish. So if it's a short-term relationship and you just had a conversation with someone and asked for a job, and if you receive rejection, that really in a way affects your relationship. So do not go for that, and do not state the obvious, like Robert said. The second big point that we made is uh, having the expectations all set. So even when you're asking about, I mean, informal conversations, Robert, I would say maybe could be an icebreaker, but at the same time, do not talk to them like that in a way that you have known them for a long time, because especially when you're going to
Mhm.
events and it's such a formal gathering, and
Mhm.
people wouldn't informal questions can be asked once a relationship has been established, and you really have to see like how the other person is talking to you as well. The third thing is expressing curiosity, and that can be done by doing a good background research on them, knowing what they like and all of that. LinkedIn states so much of that information because it also shows hobbies and interests, some teaching skills, teaching experience, voluntary experience. So it's very essential to look for that common point and use that common point as a way to establish connection. So
Mhm.
that was a really good point that you made, Robert.
Thanks, man. Man, you made some awesome points too. This has been a fun conversation. Again, you guys show Divyanshu some love in the comments. Tell him thanks. Be sure to connect with him with a personal invitation note on LinkedIn. Um, Man, I've loved this. I get so excited, so passionate about networking because it is the best way to get a job here in America, especially if you're an international student. Be sure to like the video to say thanks to Divyanshu. And if you got other guys, or sorry, if you guys have other ideas of fun topics you want us to cover or do live sessions about, let us know. Hit us up on social media. Yeah, we're thankful for you guys. We want to help you guys succeed here in America. Have a great night. Have a great week. Thanks so much, Divyanshu. This has been fun, buddy. I know you got work to do tonight, so I'm gonna let you go. But let's go ahead and say goodbye and wrap up to everybody.
Thank you so much, Robert, for having me, and it's always fun to work with you.
Awesome. Well, cheers, everyone. We'll see you next time at Shine Coaching.